Professor Luis.
Okay, sure. So, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. For the talk today, I think it's best if anything that you don't understand, at least for the first 30 or so minutes, you just raise your hand and say, I don't understand that, and I'll try and explain better. The reason for this is because I can go on for a whole hour, and if I lose you in 5 minutes, what's the point? So we want to learn something in this process, so I'm going to hopefully teach you something. And so if you don't understand anything, it doesn't matter how small a problem or how big a problem, I can probably explain it a little bit better. I learned last night that the healthcare system in Taiwan is much different than that in the US. And so what I'm going to tell you in part is based on my work in the United States, and so you'll have to understand how that is sort of mapped now maybe to Taiwanese questions. And then also, think about if I have a queuing system that I'm going to describe to you in just a few minutes, how it might be applied other places other than just in healthcare. Maybe it's in manufacturing, maybe it's in semiconductor manufacturing, maybe it's in logistics, maybe it's in transportation. Any of these things can be applied other places than what I'm going to describe to you. Okay? All right. Let's get started. Oh, I should have mentioned. So Chen Hung always likes to say that I was his advisor for his PhD at the University of Michigan, which is true. But I think that for the most part in his thesis work, he did all the work. I took most of the credit. He did all the work. So one of my best students for sure. Okay,
so what is the research topic of Chen Hong was doing at Michigan?
I know, but do you want to say?
I'm doing the dynamic control production system with the maintenance or the failure of the machine.
Okay, so quite related to this area as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's all you're gonna say? Okay.
I can spend half an hour talking
Okay.
about
So he spent a lot of time thinking about queuing systems which have direct applications to semiconductor manufacturing. So let's just say that. Okay, let's see. So for me, I like to think about dynamic decision making under uncertainty. Dynamic meaning that you have to make decisions over and over again, so repeating decisions. Under uncertainty means randomness, so the probability is attached to these things. Okay? Many applications, I've listed a few here. I've written papers in all these areas. Today's talk is sort of centered in this one, but I really have been thinking a lot about scheduling and large-scale computing as well. More recently, I think the next thing I'm going to do after I finish this stuff is it's going to be more applied to logistics. So I don't see logistics listed here, but it's going to be my next thing. Okay. I highlight here because sometimes I think less about applications and more about theory. And the theory of Markov decision processes is the area that I focus on. So I think Chen Hong's students probably also have some relation to this idea of MDPs. And if you work in the space of artificial intelligence, I think there are basically two big branches of artificial intelligence.
Yes.
One of them I would call machine learning. You heard this term, machine learning? Okay, so that's more about taking a bunch of data and getting an estimate of a response variable. So that's a single variable based on a bunch of data, okay? And the other one is called reinforcement learning, which is basically dynamic decision making under uncertainty. So the basis of reinforcement learning falls in this MDP space. So if you understand RL, you have to understand this. Okay, let's keep going. The area that I'm going to talk about today is called mini clinics. So if you were to go to a pharmacy in the United States, it quite often happens more so now than it used to. In the back, there's a little clinic in the back where rather than buying your hair products and shampoos and things like that, and getting cold medicine, you can also see a medical service provider. So medical service providers come in different phases. They can be doctors, they can be nurse practitioners, they can be licensed vocational nurses. any of these things all provide service, and now they have them in the back of the CVS, the back of the pharmacy. Okay? So let's see. So the bad thing is that in the States, there are not enough doctors. So general practitioners are doctors, and there's not enough of them. So it's hard to have access for everyone to have access to doctors. And if you have enough licensed vocational nurses and nurse practitioners, you might be able to provide access to doctors through telemedicine. So you know telemedicine, this term? You know Zoom. Okay? So telemedicine is just provided by Zoom, that's all. That's all it is. Okay, so the idea is that if I don't have access to a doctor in the minute clinic, in the back of the pharmacy, I might be able to access a doctor who's sitting somewhere else via Zoom. Broadly speaking, this is telemedicine. Okay? Alright. The nice thing is that just like here, the pharmacies are all over the place. So they have them, this is a way to expand access to healthcare in the US. And of course, it's a for-profit company that's doing this. So CVS, Walgreens are a for-profit company, they want to make money out of it. This is a picture of a mini clinic in the back of the CVS in Evanston, Illinois. And you can see over that way would be the rest of the pharmacy. In the back, you go back in the back, and you can see you can get a COVID shot, you can get a flu shot. You can also see a nurse practitioner in the CVS. Okay. Still with me? Yes. All right. Good. Now you get the sense. So it turns out that not all patients need a higher level of care. Some of them just, you come in, you have a sniffle, you get some tissue, and you go home. Some of them don't require a telemedicine visit. Some of them do require seeing a doctor, some of them don't. And then some of them are sort of in this gray area, where the nurse practitioner gets to decide, do I call for a doctor? And this is where we're gonna get the decision making. Okay, so the MPs generally decide on their own whether or not to seek the collaborative care. And quite often, by the way, the things that they think about are, do I have the doctor I'm gonna call? Do I have lots of experience? Not things like what's the impact of making the telemedicine visit on other patients in the system. Okay, so the goal then would be to try and make it so that you can make the MP's decision, the nurse practitioner's decision, systematically, as opposed to just being almost random as to how they do this. Okay? All right. Good.
So is there information required to provide the MP to make a decision like this?
Yeah, so the MP would normally, so as it stands, we talked to two different kinds of MPs. The most senior MPs said we hardly ever call. We've been around for a long enough time, we have lots of experience, and if we call, it's because the patient needs it and we know the doctor. So they have a good rapport with the doctor, so maybe they call. The less experienced MPs call all the time. They don't know, they're not sure, they're not comfortable, they would just call. It's basically on their feeling of whether they should call or not. And we think there are other considerations that they should be taking as opposed to just how they feel about whether the patient needs to talk to a doctor. Good question. So the first thing we did this is the winter simulation conference, WSC 2024. We provided the company with a way to staff the whole system with doctors, but it came with a little bit of a caveat, so I'll get to that in just a second. So think of each one of these as being the pharmacy. So this is the pharmacy here, okay? And this is the network, so they have access like via telemedicine to these different via the arrows, okay? And it turns out that doctors can be on call, on call. They're basically available to be called by the nurse practitioners. And the reason that you don't see a complete network, the reason you don't see maybe an arrow, let's say from here to here, is that some doctors might be in a place that they can't take telemedicine in another area of the country. You'll see on the next slide, I'll show you a picture of what that looks like. Okay, so this is because of state laws, and even if you're close by, doesn't mean you can still provide care for a patient. Sometimes this is true. Okay, let's see. So here's a picture of the United States. The example I'd use is Texas, but there are others. So this is Texas. Texas is one of the biggest states in the U.S. I think it's maybe the third most populous or second most populous state in the U.S. And if I'm sitting here in Texas, let's just suppose for fun, there's no doctors until I get way over to here. It's a long distance, okay? If that's true, then even if a doctor is sitting right here, because of state laws, I can't get access to that doctor because they're geographically close, but this is a red state, red in the sense that they're constrained in who can access this telemedicine, and green meaning that it's freely available for anyone to get access to telemedicine there. And so, even if I'm geographically close from here to here, I still may not be able to cross those state lines to get help in New Mexico. That's New Mexico. That's because of state laws and the constraints in the system. Yes.
So for the state law, to me it seems the populated states, they tend to have more restriction. I mean, for me, like most of the green states, the population is probably those are the farm states, and they don't really have that many doctors. So they allow you to have the flexibility to access the service from other places. So is that the reason behind those difference in regulation?
I think, I did not think of this, but a counter argument would be both New York and Pennsylvania. This is maybe the second or third most populated state.
Yes.
And yet it's still green, whereas this is an equally populated state and it's red.
Okay.
So there's a counter argument, but I don't know that there's anything more to that. I don't know the answer to your question.
Okay. So for me, it seems there must be some reason behind those regulations. Why those regulations are there?
Yeah. So I don't have so there's political reasons for sure in some instances. For example, Texas is not only and Florida are not only red states on this picture, but also they're much more conservative states in the United States. And because of the recent laws, they may not want someone to even provide any medical care outside their state.
Okay, so there's possibly an interest group from medical doctors. They do the lobbying and.
I don't know the medical doctor. I think it has to do with religious reasons.
Okay.
They don't allow some things to occur. I can tell you about the access to abortion. And this is a state that does not allow abortion, and if you were to try and go, I don't know if it's true about New Mexico, so I can't say, but you may not be able to get an abortion across state lines, for example.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Other questions? Okay, good. So all this is to say that the problem of even staffing a telemedicine site is very difficult because you have these constraints because of the state laws. In fact, when we decided to do this, they said to us, we want to be able to provide a particular level of care. So a patient comes to our system, we want to make sure they don't have to wait more than 2 minutes, let's just say. And when we told them how many doctors they would need to make that happen, it's just way too expensive. I don't remember the numbers, so let's suppose the numbers were, we told them in Kansas that they needed 50 doctors. They said, no, we can't afford 50 doctors in Kansas, we don't have them. How about you tell us what we can do for 5 doctors? This is the numbers that we were playing with, so there's way different order of magnitude difference between what they were asking for and what we were able to provide with a decent level of medical care. Okay, so let's go back. Here's a picture again. If you look carefully, this is a picture, I'm drawing a picture of a system that occurs within a pharmacy, so in the CVS. And you'll see on the next slide in a minute, what's happening is patients are arriving to the CVS, some of them get intake, get brought into the CVS, some of them seek telemedicine, some of them do not seek telemedicine. This is all captured in this picture here. I'm gonna show you another picture in just a second, same system. Okay? Okay, so here, now if I look inside the CVS, it looks like this. This is a picture of the queuing system I want to study. And the queue, do you know what a queue is? Everybody knows what a queue is?
I think that they took the operation research courses in undergrad. This is a basic introduction.
Good. So queuing, just the term queue is good. So I can tell you that queue is a British term. So if you don't study queuing, people in the States don't know what a queue is. They know what standing on a line is. They don't know what a queue is. So that's why I asked the question. Okay. So people arrive to the system. I'll go a little faster then. People arrive in the system. I'm assuming with some arrival rate lambda. They do what's called intake. That means they find out what their name is, write down what their insurance policy is, etc. But they don't, I'm not showing that here. Okay, so I'm skipping the intake process. Okay, but after the intake process, they wait for nurse practitioners to be available. When the MP is available, they do what's called triage. So triage just means that they get a sense of what's wrong with the patient. So they're waiting in this line, they get into meeting the nurse practitioner, they do the triage. Okay, once the triage is done, the MP knows how badly the person is sick. Then, with probability P, they're required to get see a telemedicine visit. Okay, that's here, that's a collaborative thing. With probability 1 minus P, they have a decision to make. Either they collaborate or they don't collaborate. Now understand something here, and that is that the nurse practitioner has to stick with the patient throughout the whole process. So once you're attached to a nurse practitioner here, that MP follows you all the way through the rest of the process. Now of course they're here, so they may be serving here, they may be doing service for you. But then here, they may not be doing service for you, but they're getting help with the doctor. Okay? This is clear. Good, good, good. Everything I told you just then is exactly said here in words. Okay, so the key here is for the decision process we want to do. Oh, by the way, I should tell you this. This decision process will happen over and over again. Remember, I told you I want dynamic decision making. So you're going to have this new patients coming in, new triage done, new patients going to the next phase, and decisions being made sequentially over time. Yeah. Let's see. I think, let's see what is the next slide. Oh no, I want to take it to the next one. So, another piece of this is that if you study queuing, then you know there are a couple of classic queuing models. One of them is called a serial line. In manufacturing, that means that you start at the beginning, you go through one stage, next stage, next stage, next stage, like this. This is what Chen Hung's thesis was on, a serial line, going in order, one after the other. And another one is called a parallel line. So that is that they split between different sides and they go parallel. Yeah? What you see here, which I think is really interesting, is that think about this being stage, well, I'll call it stage 0, and this whole thing being stage 1. Okay, that's stage 0, that's stage 1. That's like a serial line. We agree? Look at it more closely. What you see here from here is parallel line. Agreed? So what you see here is two classic intertwined queuing systems in one system. Okay?
So this is serial followed by a parallel, right?
It's sort of, if I put these two together, and this, that'd be serial.
Serial, yeah.
But now I have this and parallel. Yeah? Okay. So the other thing, so that makes it more interesting from a research perspective, because it's just mathematically harder. The other thing that makes it more interesting from a research perspective is that normally what you would see in a serial line is you would see servers here, I mean nurse practitioners here, and different servers here. So in different stations would be different servers. Can I use a pen?
Yeah, sure.
So the pen in the serial line would be so if you look at a book, in an queuing book, you can see pictures kind of like this one, and this is the serial line where work is coming in. This is one station, this is another station. But here are the servers. So I have 3 servers here, and I have 2 servers here. Right? Okay. But in this system, the servers stay here. They don't move from here to here. In my system, the servers, who are the nurse practitioners, start here, do the triage, and then they move with you. Either do collaborative care or non-collaborative care. Collaborative care or non-collaborative care. Makes the problem even more interesting from a Taylor's perspective. Clear? Good. Okay. So now we go through it. This will go pretty quickly. This is just setting up for the problem, okay? So I'm going to assume I have C1 nurse practitioners, C2 general practitioners. I assume because general practitioners are way more expensive than nurse practitioners, C1 is bigger than C2. So more NPs than doctors. Okay? I told you already the NPs follow along with the patient, so they leave from station to station and stick with the patient until they leave the system. All the rates, I didn't go over them, but I will go over them in the next slide anyway, but I'll show you it again. All the rates, so mu0 is the rate at which triage is done, mu1 is the rate at which non-collaborative care is done by the MPs, and mu2 is the rate at which collaborative care is done by the MPs and the doctors. I assume that all those rates are strictly positive. That is strictly positive, okay? And this is not maybe the best assumption in the world, but NPs are assumed to be non-additive and non-preemptive. Non-additive means they don't stop working. Non-preemptive means they start working with a patient, don't leave the patient until they're done. Okay? Okay, that's just setting up the problem. There's more set up in the next little slides. Oh, here's some related work if you're a PhD student in the back. Of course, you have to do your homework. This is just some of the related work in the literature. If you were to go look in the literature, you'll find others work, and these are the papers where they're published. If you ever study cues, you'll find J. Michael Harrison is one of the fathers of queuing, as is Ruth Williams, one of the preeminent scholars in queuing systems. Okay. The rest of the talk is basically covering, well, okay. So the first part of the talk was the first bullet point. The rest of the talk is covering these three papers, and we're just going to get through as much as we can. We won't go through all of it, this is too much. But it's these three papers that are under review in various different journals. This is actually already submitted, so not in preparation anymore. Well, I didn't mention, I should have mentioned this. Everything I'm saying from here and from before is with my former student, Xuan Liu, and my colleague, Jamal Pender at Cornell. Okay, so the next thing I want to mention to you is that the impact on other people in the system is really mostly felt after a demand spike. You know what I mean by demand spike? Demand spike is when a lot of people come in the system at one time. That means that you're overwhelmed with too many people. Okay, it's true in any system when it has randomness. It's possible to have a big bunch of work that comes in, and you have to clear it out of the system. So if you have just a steady trickle of people, the impact on other people is not going to be really significant. But as soon as you have a lot of people coming in, the impact is more for everybody else in the system. Okay, so it's after demand spike, here it is. After demand spike is what we're looking at. And so what you want to do is, once you have a big lot of people in the system, you want to get back down to normalcy. And so I'm calling that normalcy state the zero state in my system. Okay, doesn't mean that there's nobody in the system, it just means that it's back to normal. Okay? Okay. So let's get rid of the arrivals. And we're going to do what's called model this as a clearing system. So now you don't see the lambda anymore. Have a bunch of work to do, and you want to get that work out of the system in a low cost manner. Okay. It turns out, oddly enough, this is a manufacturing plant in Indiana, in the States, and what they do is they have. When you arrive to work, they tell you, here's how much work you have to do today. And it has to be high quality. And you go in and you do all your work, and when you're done, you leave. So some people would come into the office and be done by 3 p.m. and go home. Some people weren't done until 5:30 or 6 p.m. Had to stay until the work was done. Of course, they have quality of service measures in place, but sometimes they just operate the system in this way. And basically a clearing system. You have a bunch of work in the system, you want to get it out of the system and be done with it until the next day. Okay? So this happens in manufacturing even without having a big demand spike. This happens every day in some systems. But for us, think of it as a demand spike, third system trying to get it out with a minimal cost. Okay. So you had an OR course, stochastic processes, you know about state space. Good. Yes? Shake your head, yes or yes? So okay. So describing the system over time, the state space tells you what are the potential possible states for any potential action throughout the whole system. So here I have four dimensions. And what you'll find when you have any decision problem is the more dimensions you have, the harder the problem is to solve. So a four-dimensional problem is big enough. It's a really big problem to solve. So I is the number of customers in triage, K is the number in service, K is the number of patients currently receiving non-collaborative care, and L is the number of patients at the collaborative station, including those that are in service and not in service. So either those in queue or not in service. Or in service, sorry. So some subtlety here is important to state, I guess, and that is that, can I go back? I'm going to want to make a decision here. So one way to know about the state space is I have to know how many patients are waiting. Right? That's the I. Then I need to know how many patients are actually being served here. That tells me how fast things are getting out through the system. That's the J. Then I need to know how many patients are in non-collaboration. That tells me what the rate of service can happen here. Remember, the NPs are with them. So you can't have more patients here than you have NPs in the whole system. Here, you have to know how many patients are in service and waiting. That's the L, I think it was. IJKL. The important bit here is that you can queue here in collaboration, but there's no queue in non-collaboration. You see? You see why? Here you're always going to have a nurse practitioner with you. Here the NP can be sitting here waiting for the doctor to be available. So you can queue. All right, it's good. Still with
So we have only one NP in the system?
Let's see, do I have it drawn as one? No, I haven't, no. It could be C2 NPs, I think. So it can be, yeah, I have a defined number. C1 is the number of C1 is the number of NPs, C2 is the number of GPs. Okay? Yeah, good question.
To me, why not only care about the number of NP, but it's a local decision. That means if I have 1 minute clinic here and another minute clinic over there, the NP could be shared, right?
Cannot be shared.
No.
No, you don't get to cut people in half.
Okay.
Yeah,
so the NP is kind of like a local decision. Only the GP is kind of like a shared resource between multiple mini clinics. Is that right?
That is true. Although in my model, I'm going to make the general admission fixed. But you're right. Normally, they're shared between different systems. There's a CVS in one place and a CVS in another place.
Okay, so are we modeling one clinic or the whole CVS?
Great question. Only one clinic.
Only one clinic.
Yeah. And for what I'm going to do, I'm going to assume the general practitioners are assigned to only one place.
Okay, so for the GP, the conversion mode is the GP, there is a queue in front of the GP.
That's correct.
Those people in the queue could be from other clinics. Is that your model setting, or only from the clinic?
Great question. I don't allow myself to have anything outside of the system.
Okay.
Being from
okay.
Yeah. So, but you're right. Normally, what would happen is if I'm modeling a network, some of them waiting for me could be from another system.
Okay.
That's true.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Other questions? Okay, good. Okay. So when you're modeling a decision problem, you get to choose what actions you're going to do. So when in each state, I get to define the action and my choice as to what I'm going to do. So I'm only making decisions after a triage is completed. Right, triage is done, I know what kind of patients I have. I either can send them to collaboration with me, or I can go non-collaboration. Okay, so that's the 0-1 here, the action. Okay, but it will only happen when I have work to be done at stage zero in the triage phase. That's the J. So what happens when people are actually being served in triage? Okay. Okay. Still setting things up. The next few slides are just setting up the mathematics of analysis of the queuing system. So Q00 is going to be numbering in waiting queue at station 0. Q01 is going to be the number in service at station 0. Q1, number in non-collaborative care. Q2, number in collaborative care. Okay? If whenever you're writing a paper, you have to do this, just writing it down. So what we have then is a, did I show the holding cost on the previous slide? Ah, yes, I did. So, in order to get a sense of cost or time, I'm assigning a cost per patient per unit time in the first station, and a cost per patient per unit time in either of the other substations. Okay? All right. So then the goal would be normally to minimize the overall cost. Okay? The trick is, of course, that we don't know what these guys are at any particular time. They're random variables, right? So we can't really minimize this. Well, we could try to minimize it, but we can't do it. Okay? So instead of that, we take expectation.
Hi, Mark.
Yes.
In practical interpretation, could you, what is the real meaning or H that cost refer to?
Yeah, this is a great question. So, a couple of things. In this system, I think the way to think of it is the importance of each one of those phases. So, for example, I might set this one to be 1, and then if I could say this to be 1.5, this is 50% more important. 1.7 is 70% more important than this one.
Yeah, it's like a weighting factor.
That's right. That's right. So, in other systems, what you might think of as actual dollars.
Yeah.
How much it costs you. But it's not always the case. Not always the case. Quite often you just set one to be 1, and then that's the where you set the other ones. Okay? This is the question. Good. Okay, oh yeah. So this you know almost surely this means? Almost surely just means that with probability 1.
Oh, yes.
So these are all random, because the Q's are random. Makes this whole thing random. And this is a pi, this is a particular decision process, pi. And because I've assumed exponential, I didn't say that. I assumed all of the surface times are exponential. That makes this whole thing finite almost surely, which makes this thing finite because of the exponential assumption. Okay?
So in the formula, Q0, Q1, Q2 is a probability distribution?
It's the actual, it's a random variable at time t. This is the number at station 0 that are in queue at time t under policy pi. Yeah. Similarly, in service at station 0 at time t under policy pi.
Yeah, sometimes it is assumed to follow Weibull distribution or.
So this thing changes over time.
Yes.
So if I were to fix time,
Yes.
I can't say Weibull, but I can't say what the actual distribution is. There's a distribution under this for this thing. And by the way, these things are discrete. I think Weibull is continuous, so not the particular one that you can look up really. Okay. Okay. But yeah. Good. So I should tell you this. So this is maybe to your point. I'm just going to make this clear. Maybe I said it after. No, here I say it here. Each one of these service times here is assumed to follow an exponential distribution. Okay, I said this earlier. I want to show it to you. So exponential with rate mu naught, exponential with rate mu 1, exponential with rate mu 2. Okay, that's what makes the other things I just showed you work for me. That makes. Yes, sir.
I have a brief question, and in your model, the decision is by the NPs.
and the NP's decision don't affect the non-collaboration rate or collaboration rate, year 1 and year 2, don't change.
Ah, great. So, good. So, you caught me. Good. Oh, wait, let's go back. So, in the picture here, I only have one NP.
Yeah.
And so, for 1 NP, exponential rate me 1. 2 NPs, exponential rate me 2, 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is what your question is, right? If I have 1, the decision doesn't affect the 1, but the fact of the matter is, more than 1, it affects the overall rate.
Yeah.
Because you know the minimum exponentials is some of the rates, right? So we just have overall rate changes depending on how many people are in service at each one of these.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Good question. Okay. Oh yeah, here. So we're going to assume we're only considering those patients that need to have a decision being made. So I'm going to set p equal to 0 in that previous picture, assume it's just 0. Okay, that means the probability is 1 that everybody that goes through the system needs to have a decision be made about them. And then I'm going to define the v to be the optimal expected cost. So now you don't see the pi there, so I'm minimizing overall pi. Okay, so the goal is to find this v. Once you find this v, you want to find out what structure there is in the control policy. Okay? Setup still good. Questions?
So Mark, the major purpose of optimal expected total cost is like aggregation function you want to use to derive your policy, or?
So yes, exactly right. So
Right.
so let's see. So let me go back for 1 second. And the goal then is to find a policy pi that minimizes this thing in expectation. So what policy? So I'm going to tell you every time I view the system, what the practitioner should do after a triage is done. That's what the policy is going to tell you. As soon as the triage is done, I get to decide whether you do non-collaboration or collaboration. Okay, and I'm going to do it for any state. If I do that in a smart way, then at the end of the day, from a practical perspective, I can give the MPs an idea of what they should be doing in practice. Okay? Okay, so we won't cover everything today, that's okay. Because of this, it took a long time for me just to describe the problem to you, right? It's 45 minutes for me to explain the problem. So the problem is too much so to try and hope you can get an easy solution to this problem. You can't do it. Okay, so we won't try to do that. Even after the parameters are stratified, even if I just say mu naught is this, mu 1 is that, mu 2 is this, even if I do that, I still am not able to describe a simple policy for this. It's just not doable. In fact, what your intuition tells you should be true for all policies is not true. So the usual structural result does not hold for all parameters. Okay, so I'll tell you what that is in just a minute, if that's okay. And then what we do is we're going to prove next. I'll show you how to prove it, and hopefully your intuition satisfies your intuition. We'll do it for the most general model possible, and then I'll show you how to make it simpler by making some assumptions. Okay. At the end, if there's time, I'll lift whatever we can learn from making some assumptions back to the general model to give you a sense of what to actually do. Okay? Okay, so I think that when you're making decision problems, you should think about your intuition. And your intuition should tell you that I should at least care about how much time, so forgetting this for a second, I should at least care about how much time I spend completing the next phase of service. We agree? If I spend too much time over here, people are waiting. We should agree on that. I should also care, because I've attached costs to things, I should also care how much the decision I make here impacts the overall cost. The cost here or the cost here. We agree? Okay, so two things. The time away from here should impact me, and the cost to complete each one of these services should impact me. Yeah? Okay, that's a simple intuition. What this says, move my mouse. What this says is the cost to complete service on a particular customer, if I do non-collaboration, is just H1 over B1 if I do a non-collaboration, and H2 over B2 if I do collaboration. Well, I didn't write H2 over B2, but it's collaboration. Can we agree on that? But, but the collaboration situation is that I might have to queue and wait. So it's more than the cost of that particular patient, it's the cost of that patient after it waits for every patient in front of it to go. Right? You have to compare those two things. Cost to come get out of here, H1 over B1. Cost to get out of here is wait for everybody in front of me to go, and then I go. This is calculated here. Yeah, here. Calculation is not that important. What's important is that you see that I have to wait for everybody to get out first, then I get my service. Which is just this. So in my decision problem, I'm computing the cost to the system to have the first one, and the cost to the system to have the second one, and then I'll move on from there. Can we agree on that? Okay. Don't worry about the math, think about the intuition. Okay, so here, same thing, time. Time to complete service if I do the first one, time to complete service if I do the second one, but I'm thinking about the second one as people have maybe in front of me. Okay, we'll calculate that. We agree? Okay, let's suppose then that we're gonna go through this. Okay. Let's suppose that the cost here is lower than here, and the time here is lower than here. And we should probably expect I should be doing this one. We agree? Remember I told you two considerations, cost and time. We agree?
Yes.
Okay. That's what the theorem says. Assuming there's no queue, suppose there's queuing, that's what the L bigger than C2 says. The cost is lower to do station 1, and the time is lower to do station 1. It says, do not collaborate. Station 1 is non-collaboration, station 2 is collaboration. Sorry, yeah, that's right. So if there's a queue, that's when L is bigger than C2. If there's a queue, cost is lower to do 1, time is fast to lower to do 1, all the time. By the way, if I don't have to wait, cost lower to do 1, time lower to do 1, there's no queue this time. Right? So now, don't collaborate. Okay, so the proof is simple, but the idea should be hopefully intuitive to you. Agreed? All right. So, by the way, if I have, can you see that if I have the blue, this and this, that it implies this? Right. So, forgetting nature, you can see that this is bigger than, right? So this is let's see. So this is for L bigger than C2. So this is bigger than 1. This means this constraint is more strict than this constraint, right? And so, similarly here, this is bigger than L is bigger than C2, so this is bigger than 1. So this constraint implies this constraint. We agree? Yes. If we agree on that, then if I have the blue, it says never collaborate. Right? If you never collaborate, then why are you building an IT system in the first place? Why do you need telemedicine in that system? You don't, right? Remember the call for telemedicine? Don't build an infrastructure for that. So if you were around last night, if you were around last night, I talked about open loop and closed loop questions. This is an open loop question. It says don't make a decision about whether to build a system in a way that minimizes cost overall. If the blue happens, never collaborate. Don't need telemedicine at all in that system.
Under the assumption that telemedicine didn't bring extra benefit, like the benefit to help the patients.
That's what it says. If there's no benefit, don't do it. Kind of obvious, right? But more importantly, don't build it, right? You don't need. The telemedicine requires more space, requires doctors to be available. You can take those doctors and put them somewhere else. Don't make it worth it. Don't use it.
It's not exactly what I mean. What I mean is apparently telemedicine bring you some extra benefit other than the cost of waiting, because sometimes you just get to see the general doctor.
Yeah, that's true. So this is a question. Yeah, good. So this is a question of is there benefit to having that doctor be there at all?
Not in terms of waiting costs.
I
Sometimes
understand.
you just have to.
Sometimes so I've assumed in this system here that that there's always a decision, okay? So if you have to go see a doctor, then it's different, okay? But what I'm saying here is that under these assumptions that I've made, where every patient has the potential to have a decision, and you're right, there isn't some extra consideration after that, beyond the service rates and the holding cost, then this is true. But you're right, but it could be that you just get better service because doctors are available. This is a question. We don't know. It's also usually what you would say is that service rates are faster when you have telemedicine because doctors are better. But it's not always true. They take more time sometimes because you have two people working on the same patient. It's not always true. So I can't really say anything other than what's on the screen other than what I just explained to you. Okay. What it says here is what I just told you just a minute ago. Turns out the opposite direction does not hold. If I were to flip-flop those inequalities, now the cost is lower to do collaborative care, the time is lower to do collaborative care. It turns out the first thing still captures the difference in cost. But the second thing is not actually capturing the whole cost to the system because you're not spending your time at station 0. So the complete characterization for this system, this situation, just we can't do it. We don't know how to do it. So if you flip out both those inequalities, even though the intuition still holds, this is a hidden cost that we're not capturing in the system. All right. Are you familiar at all with this Bellman's principle of optimality?
Yeah, by not, I think only only very few students, their research related to the deep reinforcement
RL makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just explain very quickly. The idea in Bellman's principle of optimality is that if I'm trying to build an optimal control policy, I can build it recursively through a sequence of optimal controls for smaller systems. So I have one system that's built on another system, and I have to make sure that the first system is optimized, that the next system is optimized, and this system is optimized. So optimal paths through the system are made up by optimal subpaths. This is basically what the principle of optimality is in a nutshell. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because I wanted to get to the value function I mentioned to you earlier, is Bijkl. And I can write equations, which are called Bellman's equations, recursively by looking at this system using Bellman's principle of optimality. That's what's on the next slide. Okay. So I'll give you an example. Nothing to do with this. Okay? Nothing to do with this. So barely understand this than it is for me to keep talking about this particular problem. I'm going to show you a picture. Yeah, Google Maps. Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, Google Maps basically tells you when I'm sitting at a particular place, what's the fastest time, or some other metric, shortest distance to get from point A to point B. This is point A, this will be point B. Okay, right? And now I need some numbers. I do this with my undergrads, and I ask them for numbers, and they always give me numbers I can't use. So just stick to integers, and give me some numbers. Numbers, 3, 2, 10. See, good. So far we've got a good thing. My students always say like pi. Good. Keep it going. Non-negative integers. Okay? Anyone else? 5. 8. 3. Oh, I don't want this one. I'm going to delete it. 3. Okay. 6. They can repeat. 1.
4.
4. 11. 7. That's all of them, right? Okay, so now I'm going to give some letters here. I'm going to call this one Z instead of B, okay? It'll be easier. Do you say Z or Z?
Z.
Okay, Z. Okay, so I'll call this one B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, so we're trying to get from A to Z, okay? And usually when I do this, you can't just eyeball the shortest path. Oh, this is my thing telling me my count. Okay, you can't just look at it and tell me what the shortest path is. Can you do it? Can you tell me, looking at it, what the shortest path is? These are costs. The 5, the 3, these are all costs. Let's go from A, we'll go to A to C, it costs 2. We'll go to A to D, it costs 10. Can you eyeball tell me the shortest path by looking at it? No, not I mean, okay, from here to here the shortest. I'm talking from here to Z. Can you tell me what the shortest path is? All of them? Hopefully the answer is no. Okay, let's just say no. Even if it's yes, let's say no. Okay? Okay, but you can tell me the shortest path from here to here, right? For each one, if I start out in G, you know it's 7. There's only one way to go. From here, F to Z, 11, right? From E to Z is 4. Okay, so I'll write them over here. This one's 7, this one's 11, this one, we say 4, right? Yeah, okay? We agree. Now, from here, you would want to be able to get the shortest path from here. So you could enumerate all the paths, but you also know the shortest path from here to here already is 7, 11, or 4. Right? So from here, from B, you have 2 choices. You can go here, or you can go here. So if I go here, it's 8, plus the shortest path from here is 11, so that's 19. From here, what did I say, 5 plus 7 is 12. Right? So 12 is 7. Which one? Here I have, oh, I want to do one more. I only have, let's do one more. Give me another one. Give me another one. Another number. 3, okay. The 6 is for this one, 3 is for this one. Okay, so from here, from here I can go 3 plus 11 is 14, right? 3 plus 4 is 7. So we choose 7, right? Okay, so that's 7 here, circle it. And then this one, 1 plus 4 is 5. And then 1 plus, 6 plus 11 is 17. Right, so 5. Right? Okay. One more. 3 plus 12 is 15. 2 plus 7 is 9. 10 plus 5 is 15. So 9. Okay. So we know the shortest path is by now, right? Different color. So it looks like you go here, and then here, and then home. So that's the shortest path, right? Here's another thing that you should notice. This is the shortest path from here. This is the shortest path from here. You also know the shortest path from here. From here, it's this way, different color. From here, you go here to here. Right? From here, you go here to here. Okay. So what you should notice here is that an optimal path is made up of optimal subpaths. So there's an optimal path from here, there's an optimal path from here. That's Bellman's principle in a nutshell. Yeah? I had a paper before Google Maps had a Google Maps on this kind of thing. And they make $1 gazillion, I make nothing. But it's okay. Anyway, the point here is that I'm going to do exactly the same thing here. This is deterministic. There's no randomness in this problem. But I'm going to do exactly the same thing here, but with randomness. In the past, are not going to be as simple as this one. It's more sophisticated, but it's the same idea. All right. This, by the way, Bellman's principle, basis for MVPs, basis for RL, for random reinforcement learning. Okay, good. Here's my Bellman's principle now written down in equations. It turns out that what you see in red is where decisions are being made. So the easiest thing to do is figure you have a queue at station 0. Okay? When a service completion is done for triage, I have a decision to make. I get to go either to non-collaborative care or to collaborative care. All right, I always lose one because I just got the service done. So I go here or I go here. So to make that decision, I have to choose between the left V or the right V. Everything else in the system is just what's happening with randomness. So I have a service completion. Here's service completion at station. Oh, yeah, at station, the second station, but for collaborative care, right? I have a service completion for non-collaborative care. No decision then. Decisions are only the red part. Okay, once I do that, what's happening here is I'm getting closer and closer to zero, the zero state. You agree on this? Because there's only so much service that has to be done for me to enter the system. And this is after service completion, I'm getting closer and closer to the zero state. Eventually, I get to zero state and I'm done. That's the recursive piece. So this is the same idea of recursion here. This is a recursion here, but in a much more sophisticated way. Okay? All right. Still with me? That's good. Yeah. Okay. Good, good. It turns out that if I have class 2, so this is the MP, the GP service, the collaborative service cost is lower, and the time to complete service is lower, and there's no waiting, it's L less than C2, no waiting. Then you should always use collaborative care. Now before there was no collaborative care, now I'm saying this gives me conditions for collaborative care. What you should notice here, and the important thing here is there's no queue. So I really don't have to compare the cost to get through the system and time to get through the system. That's what's happening here. And this is captured, the way to prove this, by the way, is by showing that this inequality holds. What you should see in Bellman's equations is just that this difference is positive. Like the one on the right is lower than the one on the left. In Gaussian equations. Sorry, it's low on the screen. So, oh, very good.
Hi, Mark.
Yes.
Could you go back to the previous page?
Sure.
I got lost a little bit. So what is the denominator D of the JKL? What is D for?
Yeah. So this is just the overall rate at which things are happening. So what I do here, I didn't want to, yeah, so I didn't go through this in detail. What's happening here is that you have exponential things happening, and the first event that happens, you have all these things happening. You have service going on at station 0. You have collaborative care going on. You have non-collaborative care going on. All those things are exponential. So the rate at which things are happening is the minimum of all the exponentials. And when you do the minimum of all the exponentials, the rate at which those things are happening is the sum of the rates, which is just this. So minimum of 2 exponentials is exponential with rate sum. That's just a bunch of exponentials, and that's the sum of the rates.
So what does this equation come from, or just you define it?
This or this?
Oh, that D.
D. So this is, yeah, you have two dots here. This is the definition.
All right.
But this comes from the minimum of exponentials. If I take 2 exponentials, just think about 2 exponential bells.
Okay.
One is going at rate alpha, one goes at rate beta. And then the rate that the first time you hear a bell go off is alpha plus beta. That's it. Yeah. So this is a great question because I'll tell you more, a little bit more. And that is that that means that now I have an exponential at this rate. Okay? And the mean time for that to happen is just this D. And so all I'm saying here is that this is the probability that the first one of those is a collaborative care. The first one of those is non-collaborative care. The first one of those is the triage. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. I should have gone over this in more detail.
I'm just curious.
I'm going yeah, trying to get the overall flavor of what's happening, not going into all the details. I probably should go into more detail. Okay, you still with me on this one? Okay, intuitively, I hope this makes sense. Here's something that I think is fun for the PhD students, maybe. I'm just going to tell you. Do you know what mathematical induction is?
Maybe not.
Yes, no?
No.
Mathematical induction basically is that if I want to, I did it here, by the way, but I'll tell you something. So mathematical induction basically says that if I want to prove something that is true for n, I prove it for a base case, which is basically 0, and then I assume that it's true for n, and I prove it for n plus 1.
Yes.
That's mathematical induction. So if I can do that, then if I get it for the base case, I can get it for 1, because that's n plus 1. Now I know 1 is true, I can get it for 2, for 3, for 4, for 5. True for mathematical induction is any system like this you can do, any statement that you can do mathematical induction. What I'm saying here is that because the state space is so weird, that basic mathematical induction did not work for us. Instead, fun of it is that we had to do mathematical induction in multiple dimensions. Which instead, and I can't draw it by cutting up time like this. I have to cut up time like this and like this. And that's what's written on the slide. So don't worry about the slide. Think of the fact that I had to prove things along this way and along this way at the same time to get it in the box. Can't do a box, but anyway, the box. Okay? So the technical piece is more difficult than the basic mathematical induction piece you normally see in a lot of these models. Okay.
Mark,
Yes.
let me a minute. I explain this to
Sure.
them.刚 Mark 老师讲就是数学归纳法，就是数学系大一会学的那个数学归纳法。我要证明啊，它这个方程式，它比如说它从1、2、3、4、5一直到 n， 然后那它要证明这个式子是成立，或者这个理论成立，通常我们会比如说从0、1、2，然后呢，我们证明到 n 成立，然后我们只要有办法证明 n 加1也成立，然后这个叫数学归纳法。那刚刚那个 Mark 老师说，他这个理论它是不适用，那在下一句要听他讲，我不知道为什么不适用。
Isn't that what I just said?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I hope.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, good. The next thing I'll mention, although we won't go into detail on this one, is that I've given you all the easy cases so far in what I talked about. And now we get to the hard case. And the hard case is somewhat intuitive in the following sense. If I'm making decisions, let me just go to a picture. Can I do one after this? No. If I'm making decisions here that I think are going to be impacted by what's here, then the most strict decisions to be made, the more work I have here. So if I'm working here, let's say, and I think I should be working here after some time, the more work I have here, the bigger impact it's going to have on more and more customers. I may switch from here to here. I'm not seeing the faces I was hoping to see. Not making sense.